Hello. Okay, so I am talking to David Flowers in Manchester, the UK. He's been a personal trainer for some time, and we've been friends, although we've never actually met via social media for quite a while now. He used to live over here in Dubai briefly some years back, although ironically I was out of town for about 18 months, so we never crossed paths. So, David, I will let you introduce yourself, mate.
Check this out. Strong.
Where and what is your sweat equity? What measures are you prepared to invest in yourself? Because that's what it is, folks. A higher quality of life and improvements in your quality of life and your health are an investment. Newsflash, everybody, you're always on a diet. I want you to view this as mental fitness.
As we all know, aesthetics are not health.
If we're absolutely honest, anyone that embarks on a diet is looking to reduce their body fat, not their weight. Weight is just mass. I can take 5 kilos off you with a chainsaw. You won't be any healthier, but you'll have reached your goal.
Thanks for having me on, Rich. Really appreciate you taking time out of your day to interview me on all things health and fitness.
Not a problem, mate. Not a problem. So over there then, are you winding down for Christmas just yet, or is it another week or so before things start to settle down?
Yeah, I'll be working up to Christmas Eve and then we'll be hopefully signing off. But to be honest, I think I will be working straight through this Christmas purely because, just limitations on where to go and everything else.
Sure.
We don't want to bore people with what's going on right now in the UK, but I'll be working. And to be honest, I like keeping my clients training throughout Christmas, but things will be a lot quieter. But I like to keep my clients training throughout Christmas somewhat to keep them on the wagon before the new year hits. So I'll definitely be thereabouts.
I've got a couple of mine that I'm bursting out of town on vacation that have said they'll work right up to the point where I say enough's enough for the break. And I did warn them, you do realise I'll work up until New Year's Eve and then have a short break. I've lived overseas too long. They were like, no, I definitely want a break. Okay, fair enough. But right, I know the answer to this, but how did you get into personal training, mate?
Yeah, I've been a personal trainer now for pretty much coming up to a decade. I got into it having a background in sports science, played football growing up, went to university, did sports science degree. Wanted to get into S&C in professional football. Didn't really enjoy it. Well, when I kind of dipped my toe in doing that field, it wasn't that something that I enjoyed. And from there, it was kind of like I always knew I wanted to be within health and fitness in some capacity. And it wasn't until I basically went to New Zealand having to struggle finding work in the UK when I finished my degree that I actually basically got my first job in Wellington in New Zealand. So that's where it all really kicked off for me, to be honest with you, in a private studio in Wellington. Started training the general population and I just found an absolute love for it. It was obviously a far cry from training sports performance guys.
Sure.
And I also got a lot more from it, from actually just seeing people progress and wanting to progress as opposed to people feeling that they have to do it just because they play a sport. And in all seriousness, footballers don't really care too much about what they do in the weight room. I think they just want to play football and whatnot. So for me, it was good to just really help people who have struggled with whatever their goals may be. And that's where it all kicked off for me, really, in Wellington. And then from there, I've been all over the world, fortunately. Like you mentioned at the start, I've worked in Dubai, I've worked in Sydney, Australia. And New Zealand were the first place for me. And now I'm back in Manchester. So I've been around the block a little bit as a personal trainer, dealing with loads of people from all walks of life. And honestly, to this day, I absolutely still love what I do.
Cool. So having, like you said, dipped your toe in things in different parts of the world, how does working in the UK as a trainer, obviously that was at a different stage of your career, having been doing this for 10 years or so, how does it differ, New Zealand to Dubai to the UK as an environment as a trainer?
I think personally, I think it's all, with the demographic that I work with, I've worked with a variety of people, but fundamentally all the people that I've worked with want the same thing. I guess from obviously people are different in terms of what they do for a job, their lifestyles are different, but they all want to engage in training. They all want to become fitter. They want to be stronger. They either want to lose weight. They want to build muscle. So in terms of like the clients and who I've dealt with, everything's been kind of relatively the same. It's just obviously different people from all walks of life that I've dealt with, and obviously the lifestyles are a little bit different to those that I work with in, say, Australia, to those that I work with currently in Manchester. And I've worked at different facilities as a commercial gym and private facilities as well. And when I was in Dubai, it was a private facility there as well. So I've kind of worked commercial and private, but fundamentally everyone wants the same goals. People are running into the same problems, that they struggled to lose weight for years, for example, and they just want some guidance on how they can hopefully achieve their goals, and with my help, hopefully get them in the right direction. So yeah, I won't say it's varied too much, other than the weather's a lot better over there than it is in Manchester.
That's probably true.
I think that's probably the most important one, I would say.
I mean, we should probably just take your answer to that question and use it as part of a syllabus for personal trainers coming through their educational courses, because it really would be good, I think, for a lot of people going into the fitness industry to comprehend that notion that regardless of where you are working, your demographic of clients is going to be pretty much the same. You know, don't throw your hat in the ring and go, I'm going to go and work with the guys who want to pay me $500,000 a year, and I'm going to buy a mansion after 6 months, and go come and live in Dubai, drive a Bentley like everyone else does. You know, that kind of the golden dream to go. You're going to get injuries, people who want to get stronger, people who want to lose weight. That's going to be the crux of your entire income. Literally,
yeah. And for me, that's who I want to deal with. And I know I've kind of, dialed in on the niche that I want to work with, the everyday people, the people who have always struggled to create a better lifestyle for themselves within health and fitness, and make that a part of their life. I want to help those overcome barriers to participation, and that's something for me that's a real big thing. I want to help people like my mum do this, or at least take this up for the health benefits that it'll bring for hopefully a long period of time. So for me, my niche has always been everyday people, and it's something, when I started in the career, like you said, you can kind of become a little bit lost with who you want to work with, but there's no greater satisfaction than working with who I currently work with. And for me, I see that never changing. I don't never want it to change. And it's what I get the most satisfaction from my job, by dealing with these people who have these problems, and hopefully I can help them overcome them somewhat.
Yeah. I mean, that is a real integral thing that people, when you're succeeding and you see your clients succeeding, it is a real high to take out of the job, isn't it? When you go home at the end of the day, the session goes really well, everything's gelled, and you're like, right, I'm walking out the door, regardless of what time it is, 6:30, 7:30, whatever, 8 o'clock at night. You're like, great, the day's ended on a high, positive, I'm going home happy. That's a fantastic feeling, because you know that someone else's life is really, they're achieving what they want to achieve.
100%. And for me, one of my kind of like core values is exactly that. I want the hour training session with myself to be the best hour of the client's day. That's something that I really pride myself on. And I want that hour that they spend with myself to be where they look back on the day and think, that was an absolutely top class hour. I absolutely love that hour, because obviously in current society and people's lifestyles and the stress people are under, with whether that's work commitments and things like that, like the days they'll look back at the days, and sometimes they don't really have many good days because of what they're doing. So if I can contribute somewhat to actually putting a smile on the face, or actually help them feel like they've accomplished something that hour, and they walk out that gym with their head held high, and they feel like they're walking out feeling better than they did when they walk in, like it's the best feeling. And I'm luckily, and I'm fortunate enough to be able to do that multiple times a day, every single day.
I think that is a very important thing, because it sets people up with especially if they're new to exercise via the experience with their trainer, their physical and emotional and mental connections to becoming healthier are all going to then run on a positive, rather than any kind of extremist program that's just going to rag them for a few months or whatever else, whether like, I dread exercise every time I've got to do it. If they do build that positivity, it does carry on. You do see that positive in them, because they'll come into the gym happy. They'll be like, yes, this is going to be great. Never mind the shit at home or work. It's like, good.
No, exactly. Definitely.
Right. So on that one then, what do you think is probably one of the most underrated aspects of getting into a healthy lifestyle when people start? Because we all know the buzzwords and things people throw out there, but the kind of things that people can make quite easily make those changes into the lifestyle, but maybe don't give the importance to that they could.
Yeah, funnily enough, I did a post pretty much on this last night, and I was speaking about like just meeting the physical activity guidelines in general.
Sure.
And I think a lot of people will overlook these things because they're trying to seek something new, seek something shiny, and that's not just the general population in general. It's personal trainers as well, with their own learning, their own development, and what they expect from their clients. And I think, as a whole, if we can get people focusing on just meeting those guidelines, doing something that they enjoy and they can progress in, that is like probably one of the best things that they can do from a health standpoint to get them in the right direction, to actually create some adherence to training in general, health and fitness. I think that's the good place to start. But unfortunately, a lot of people look beyond that. They're looking at what type of cardio training should I do? What type of HIIT training should I do? What type of resistance training should I do? How many sets? How many reps? Like, what exercise? This exercise on Instagram, someone's saying it's rubbish. Someone's saying it's amazing. Someone says it doesn't hit this muscle group, hit that muscle group. And it's all the minutia, and it's all smoke screens. And really, we should just be getting real tunnel vision on, are we meeting the physical activity guidelines? And just, if anyone's not sure of what they are, that's just like any moderate activity around 150 minutes per week, more vigorous activity around 75 minutes per week, and strength training twice per week. Like, if you could just look at your weeks and think, you know what, I'm not even ticking those. For me, get those ticked before you think about anything else. Like, even this is what I say to when I mentioned like people like my mum before, because that's who I deal with. My mum does 2 yoga sessions a week. So I'm like, cool, you're doing your 2 strength-based sessions a week there, mum. Unbelievable, brilliant. What are you doing for your aerobic fitness? And she does swimming twice a week. Say, sweet, you hit about 150 minutes. Yes, brilliant. Now we can move to that next step and look at what else could we do to make things a little bit more beneficial from you, depending on what your goal may be. But for me, she's very much happy with that, because she doesn't have an aesthetic goal. You know, she doesn't want to slap on fake tan and stand on stage. My mum, she just wants to be fitter. She wants to be healthier. She wants to add more years. She wants to decrease the chances of mortality. You know, this is what most people want, especially at the age of my mum. So yeah, I think it's just something simple like that, and finding, do I meet those guidelines with something I enjoy, and tick those boxes, and you're going to get so much from it, from a health standpoint, body composition standpoint, if that's your goal. And you're just going to be setting yourself up for success. And then we can think of other things down the line once that's been nailed. I would say that's my biggest one.
Yeah. All right, I'm going to ask you this, because I mentioned it in a podcast I recorded and put up yesterday as one of the points I raised. And I'm not doing it to stiff you. I'm just doing it so people can hear someone else say he's also in the industry. Right. Okay, so talking to a newbie to the fitness world then, cardio training, resistance training, or both? Now, I'm going to let you talk from your point of view, because I know what my point of view is, so they can hear it from someone else as well. When it comes to the typical goal of reducing body fat percentage, Dave, I'll turn it over to you.
I would say, again, I know it comes down to that goal can be quite broad. I would look at it. I'd look at it as if somebody, I would say definitely both. I would encourage people to do both of those activities, like lift weights, because I want people to have more muscle mass on the frame. I want them to be stronger. I'm thinking of things like bone density. I'm thinking about long-term health issues that may arise as the population get older. I'm thinking about the good stuff. I'm thinking about the stuff from that standpoint. And then obviously from a health standpoint, I'm thinking I want people to have cardiorespiratory fitness as well, because we don't want to go as you know, I don't want people to start going down the line of cardiorespiratory disease down the line, all those things. So I'm looking at those things as I want someone to have a relatively good aerobic base of fitness. So they're able to walk a flight of stairs without feeling like they need an oxygen tank on the back. And I also want people to have enough muscle on the frame that they're not falling over as they start to age. And related to like hip fractures and all that stuff. So I would say for the newbie beginner, if they have a body compositional goal, so that's more muscle mass and less adipose tissue, so body fat, I would say they want to have a combination of those things. And that kind of links back to what I mentioned about the guidelines. Anyway, the guidelines say people really need both things: strength train twice a week. So that would be lifting weights, and then aerobic activity alongside that for the aerobic base. But then it comes down to what the goal is in general. Like, because like, you've probably heard of, I know you will have as well, Rich, with this one, like specificity. And I like to think about, is your training specific to what your goal may be? Sure. So for example, using me as an example of that, I want to build more lean body mass. So I'm going to basically favor more resistance training within my regime as opposed to cardiovascular work. So if you think about like this on a spectrum, I'm actually dropping the pin probably more favorable to resistance training as what I would be to aerobic activity. Sure. But if someone kind of wants best of both worlds, we want to drop that pin in the middle. And then you've got people that may participate in endurance events where we're going to probably drop the pin towards more endurance and aerobic based activities for that individual. So it all depends on what the goal is fundamentally and where you want to be specific, because specificity does also have a cost. So if I was to start running shitloads outside and pounding the pavement, that ain't setting me up favorably to build lean body mass. Because the pin has been shifted a little bit too much to the other way. Can you do it? Yes. But if I want to really just focus on that thing, the likelihood is I would need to limit that somewhat. So I would say the newbie, I want people to have a good base of everything. I want people to be able to do everything. Like I said before, I want them to be able to complete day-to-day tasks in life without any issues. So that's getting stronger and getting fitter and having more muscle and less fat. If that answers your question.
Yeah, fantastically. Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, I was asking you that because I'd said it and I wanted people that might listen to my podcast to hear it from someone else, but also because I know that, like myself, you can make your points very succinctly, very clearly, without spending 15 minutes going into how ATP benefits, blah, 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 all that kind of crap. But yeah, no, that was a very clear answer. Thank you. So I'm staying with the underrated thing for a second. We've talked about the training side of it. What do you think would be a point or two that people can overlook when it comes to their nutrition?
Overlook with nutrition. Oh, I think with this one, I think the one that you're seeing quite often now is like people, like basically they're not really offering solutions. They're identifying problems without offering solutions with nutrition. So how I'd like to explain this is if you go on any social media account these days, someone's kind of wanting to lose weight, ask them they want to lose weight, and the first thing that they're saying is calorie deficit to that individual. And it's like they're identifying a problem. That's clear. If somebody's looking to lose weight, we need to create a calorie deficit for that process to happen. That's 101 law of thermodynamics that needs to happen. But I feel like it gets missed with that's not offering a solution to that individual. And that's something that I think as a whole, and obviously with what we do as personal trainers with the individual in front of us, is how do we get that person to do that? And that can be different for anybody. And there's so many ways for that to happen. It's just, what tool do I use as a trainer to make that happen? So I guess what's underrated is it's all down to what's applied, if that makes sense. So I feel like it's underrated to look at other measures other than just say calorie deficit, here's a meal plan. I feel like there's so many tools that are actually underrated with what you can use to help people in the right direction for nutrition. We just need to find out more about them as an individual as opposed to the broad general public. But if I was to, it'd be the same advice that's probably been given for years. If I was looking at like a broad kind of recommendation, if that's kind of where I'm going with this, like you mentioned with the novice training, it'd be probably what people have heard about before, where we're looking at protein servings, we're looking at lean protein, we're looking at more fibrous vegetables, we're looking at more fruit in the diet, we're looking at more less density foods and more kind of volume of food. So we're looking at more food volume as opposed to food density in terms of calories. that's kind of what people already know about. But it's like, how do we as individuals help that person do that within their current lifestyle? And then we've got the food environment situation. We've got people's environment, which throws a whole nother spanner in the works to how do we make this happen?
Yeah.
So it's I guess with that, it's kind of like there's so many tools within nutrition that are really underrated.
Mm-hmm.
It's just which one do we use for that person? So I've used things like whether it's continuous food diaries, whether it's just giving somebody a protein target. I've used so many things that will lead to the same outcome. You know, I've had people in that say who are a little bit, you know, in terms of dietary adherence, they're not the best at following something. So I'm not going to necessarily go with a meal plan for them, but say they're a muscle building client who struggles with dietary adherence. It might just be something like a protein target for them. And then we just get them hitting a certain protein target. And what that does is essentially, because of eating protein anyway, it's going to give them a little bit more satiety. It's going to make them feel a little bit fuller. That's going to ultimately reduce calories in terms of like other stuff that they're eating. And it'll start to tidy up the diet in general. So they're like strategies that are really possibly underrated in this world, because everyone just looks at calorie deficit, meal plan, recipes, change your diet completely, when there's so many things you can use that are actually underrated but very useful.
We'd all like to be a bit healthier, but sometimes it's just hard getting the right ingredients in or knowing what meals to make in the time frame that you've got. So I put together 4 unique books available on my website right now that can help you make all those decisions, have the best nutritional start to your day, and start to make some real impact in improving your quality of life. Okay, so if you go to my website, www.thebodyengineer.training, and go to the online store, there are 4 books there for you right now. There is the 52 high protein recipes, quick and easy 5 ingredient recipes. That's a fantastic good starter book if you're trying to improve your meals. Your go-to vegan recipe book and the keto guide, okay? All available for $14.99. Listeners to this podcast get a discount if you use the code POD20. So it's not just me who says these things. Brilliant, good. So coming away from talking as trainers, then, what does because I've not worked in the UK for a very long time. What's January look like in terms of the fitness world? I mean, is it like everyone gets to New Year and rushes back to the gym and signs up, or is there like a slow eking of people realizing, I mean, obviously you've got the January resolution crowd, but is there like a slow awakening to people setting themselves goals, or is it like a flood? You know, I'm asking because I'm curious.
Yeah, I think in general, like from my experience, I think the commercial gyms are a lot busier than the private gyms.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm talking about personal training because that's where I'm at the minute, is that in January, a lot of people, obviously after Christmas, they may have spent a lot of money over that month buying presents, socializing, going out. So it's actually, from what I've seen, it's not too busy on the personal training front.
Mm-hmm.
And it's more so like, as the months progress on, that it gets a bit busier. But obviously there is a lot of people that decide New Year resolutions and things like that. And I have no problem with people making these goals and things like that in general. And I'm not going to sit here and be someone that says, oh, you know, you're going to make this plan in January and then quit it in February. And we know that's the case. We pretty much, not just in that time of year, but all year.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
again,
exactly.
it's just what, again, that comes back to what that person's does for that goal. What are they doing? And again, that happens every year, all year, with the extremities of what they've been doing. So like we mentioned at the start of the podcast with the things that you'd recommend that are underrated, I think that's a prime example of what happens usually in January. People will be like, right, training, nutrition, lifestyle, all those things, I think I can just change them at the drop of a hat. Yeah. And they try to do obviously things that are just a little bit just too much for them to take on, rather than just thinking, I tell you what, it's January, why don't I just try meeting physical activity guidelines and then set myself up for some success. So when it comes to February, you're still engaging in these behaviors. And that goes down the same with nutrition, and we're talking about the importance of weight loss maintenance as well. Like, same how people approach the diets. They're all like, right, I'm going to do this. Yeah, they're going to get a shitload of weight often at the start. And then it's kind of like, we need to start looking at, okay, how do we maintain this body weight? What approach have you been using? Is there something that we could change and use more of these underrated things that we've kind of touched upon? So yeah, I think it doesn't matter when it is. I would always just say, recommend to people, just start now anyway. Don't have a time frame on it. Starting in January is a time frame. It's like someone wanting to lose weight for a holiday. It's just a time frame. I want people to do this shit for life.
Yeah. No, it's a very strange concept, isn't it? The idea that because the calendar's changed a page, we go, oh, I'm going to suddenly address my lifestyle now. You just had fucking 12 months. Why now? What's suddenly special? Because yesterday was the 31st, today's the 1st. What suddenly clicked in your head apart from, oh, it's January again. Let's do, it's
same cycle.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, exactly. But yeah, no, you're absolutely right. It's the idea of never mind trying to just destroy your lifestyle right from the off. Start doing something well now. And then
consistently,
once that becomes less of a stressor, add on something else, because you've already started with the first aspect, add on the second, and keep doing this. Like you say, change your life, but do it at a pace that works. I mean, I know it's a common meme nowadays, well, maybe for us, you and I, because we live in a world where our industry filters back around via social media. But there's a meme that I keep seeing now and again that says, motivation will get you started. I'm paraphrasing, but motivation will get you started maybe on the first few days, but it's going to be your personal discipline that's going to see you carry on. It's all very well to go, oh, this person's putting these nice, lovely motivational posts on Instagram, or I've seen that person on TV. Like, yeah, but you're not going to see them every day. You've got to have the discipline to think about your groceries all year round. You've got to think about exercising when you're enthusiastic and you're loving it and you're living the dream, and then when you're pissed off, when you're tired, when you've had an argument with the boss, when your wife's or girlfriend or boyfriend's on your case, the kids are annoying, all the stages in your daily life that come round, you've got to still have that sense of, I'm doing this for me, it's my own benefit, I want to take part in it, and just keep that going all the way along.
Yeah, it's very easy for people like even ourselves and other people on Instagram when you see people throw out these words like discipline and things like that, because we actually love what we do.
Sure.
And we enjoy, we've been doing this for years. And for me, training's automatic. And funnily enough, and it might come to some surprise, I'm not actually really always, and if ever, really motivated to train.
Yeah.
It's because it's automatic, because I'm working in the environment. I'm surrounded by people who engage in these behaviors. That's going to then rub off on me to make me do the same. And we see that in all walks of life, where you surround yourself with, you become a product of that, obviously, that environment. So when you get fitness professionals saying it's just discipline, sort yourself out, pull your finger out, like it's a message that's not coming from really, obviously, a place of real empathy or understanding of
real life.
What that person is. That person doesn't love training. If anything, we're the robots.
Sure.
We're the weird ones. I'm the weird one. I'm the weird one going on a hack squat and nearly killing myself on it. Like I'm a weirdo. Like that's something that people need to understand a little bit more, especially in the fitness industry. And for me, I'm all about, like, people need to make things a bit automatic. So we need to create environments for people that make these things automatic.
Yeah.
So that's where it becomes very tricky. And if we can make things more automatic as opposed to having friction between them, people will usually have a bit more success. But that then comes down to, what are they doing in the first place? If they're feeling like in the new year, for example, using that they're going to set their alarm at 5 a.m., they're going to do this, they're going to do that. There's a lot of friction there, likely, if that's not your lifestyle and that's not automatic for you to be able to do. So we need to probably look at other things that become a little bit more automatic that you can do, and you can sustain them for, like I said before, forever.
Sure. I mean, you've touched on something there that it really is key if you ever want to see success with a health and fitness goal or a sporting goal or lots of other aspects of your life as well. It has to be relatable, but it has to be flexible. This, like you said, this idea of, don't set your alarm at 5 o'clock. If you know deep down in your heart, you ain't getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning. You might do it twice and then you go, fuck, I'm not doing that. It's got to be relatable. Like, you go, I'm training at this time of the day 3 times a week, but one day your kid's sick. So guess what? You're not doing that. You've got to live within the real world. You can't have these rigid programs, because you won't Like you said, you and I live in a world where we will be in the gym professionally. So it's not a great step for us to go, I'm going to train because I'm already there. But to say to some people, oh no, you've got to come and see me 4 times a week, but it's a half an hour out of your way. And there are a couple of times a week where that's going to be a real pain in the ass. You've got to give people the structure, or your own structure if you're doing it by yourself, that is going to work. You know, like you and I, we train the way that suits us because that's working within our time frame and our profession. We couldn't give someone else our schedule because it's not relatable. That's why I was asking you the questions about if you were a newbie, what advice would you give? Because that's the kind of answers people are going to want to have in January or listening to this podcast. It's like, I want to make these changes in my lifestyle. How would you help me? You know, that's the key. Not a case of, I mean, that's one thing I was going to ask you actually. If you, and you may not have, but are you aware of all these videos that keep coming around on YouTube and the rest going, what I eat in a day from this muscle-bound steroid addict or the fitness physique chick who's on stage and everything else? I get you're just doing it to pump out content, but that's as useful as me posting videos of standing one-legged on a Bosu ball juggling. You know, it doesn't translate. It keeps fostering these false images.
Yeah, there couldn't be any less helpful content if I've seen it in my life, to be honest with you. Like, yeah, when you're seeing these people, what I eat in a day, and then obviously you're going to get people commenting on them. And obviously the people that they're intrigued because they see what this individual looks like.
Sure.
They want a bit of that. They want to look a certain way, or they believe that looking that way is going to make them feel happier in life, when that might necessarily not be the case in the slightest. Having a pair of abs doesn't make people happy. And I know this because I've trained people who are a walking washboard abs, who literally the most boring bastards I've ever met in my life. So,
because they've got to live on such a restricted diet all of the time. You go, I can't have any body fat in my abdomen.
Exactly, and it's each to their own and stuff. And if that's what everyone can pick the life they want to lead. But I know most people, going back to who I work with, and that's why I'm really dialed down on my niche. The people that I work with, they want to go out at the weekend for a meal. They don't want to be carrying Tupperware to the cinema. They want to have a box of popcorn and have some Coca-Cola and smash some minstrels. Like they don't want to be taking Tupperware to the cinema. They want to go out at the weekend and have a few beers with their mates. Like, these are the people that I'm working with. And for me, how can I make that still be a part of their life, but also add to it with what we've mentioned about training, more movement in general, better quality of diet, looking into the sleep quality. Like, there's loads of things I look to add on to my client's life, not take it away. Sure. And obviously that comes down to their goals as well. If somebody's saying, I want to get absolutely shredded and I've got this amount of time to do it, and they're adamant this is what I want to do, then yeah, there's going to have to be a little bit of a tightening of the belt to make that happen. And I'm going to set clear expectations of what they're going to need to do to get to where they want to be. But yeah, on the grand scheme of things, these videos of here's a typical day of what I eat are just completely so off from the general population who are watching them, and not just from an unrealistic standpoint of like the nutrition itself and the contrast of nutrition, but the fact that some of them share these videos, and to eat like that must cost the average person an absolute fortune who's got 4 kids to feed at home.
Sure,
and he or she are watching these YouTube videos of this 21-year-old bodybuilder whose life is the gym, who's getting sponsored from bloody Gymshark or whatnot, and they're absolutely, they earn a fortune from sponsors and things like that, and they don't have anything in life that's going to take them away from what they do. They don't have kids, they don't potentially a low income. Like it's very easy for them to eat the way they do. So there's so many things we need to look at with stuff like that. That's really quite damaging for people to see, or thinking that they need to eat that way in general to get the results when they really, really don't. There's so many other ways we can get the results without actually taking away some parts and aspects of people's lives that they enjoy.
Yeah, no, I fully agree with you on that one. It's all part of the current obsession with I sort of termed it a while ago, like this whole instant gratification, or but by association of goals. The same, I think primarily now from social media, this whole idea, and Amazon, the idea that if I can stream whatever I want right now and find whatever I want right now, and I can order this next day delivery, blah blah, blah, why can't I look like this in a week? Why can't I do some extreme protocols for nutrition and training and look like that? And why can't I? Well, I should look like this, and I'm failing because I'm not doing it. All the negativity that comes from it to younger and younger people. Like you say, I mean, not to brand bash, but Gymshark, I would say, is a main culprit, certainly in the UK, because of the aura they put around not just their brand, but social media in general when it came to physique. I mean, you and I can look at the kind of individuals they used and go, hey, guess what? Most people that see these pictures will never look like this.
Yeah.
There's all kinds of methods that have been, I won't specify what because I might get sued, but there's all kinds of methodologies that have been employed to make the guy or the girl look like they do before they get to Photoshop.
Yeah, exactly. It's just, and most people deep down, when they know what they've got to do to even remotely get like that, they don't want to do it, and they make that decision for themselves. Then,
absolutely.
Which is a really good thing to actually say. This is what you're going to need to do, and I've definitely used that a lot myself in my time doing this job, where I've said, this is what you're going to need to do. This are the consequences of this type of dieting.
Yep.
This is how you're going to feel. This is what it's going to look like.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to do this?
Yeah, exactly.
And that lay it out, and then it helps people make their own decisions then.
Sure.
With what they want to do. And for me, that's a big one, because it gives them some autonomy over this situation as well, and to make a decision with whether they want to do this or not, or are they feeling like that's going to bring them more happiness in life.
Sure, that'll be the one thing that tips me over the edge. If I look like this, then my life will be awesome. You're like, you don't realize that's literally a full-time job. The amount of time you are going to spend just in the gym, going to the gym, coming back from the gym, because you don't live in one, unless you've got that kind of money. It's like you say, I'm going back a while now, but when Jake Cutler was at the peak of his career, I'm talking about false expectations. I remember reading an interview with him, and he was saying that his wife nicknamed him Garfield because she knew that he's either going to be in the gym or asleep on the sofa. That's it. That's his life. It's like he wakes up, he sits on the sofa, he goes to the gym, he comes back, he sits on the sofa, he goes to sleep, and he's like, I have to live this life to be who I am. And he was like, we never go on vacation. I can't be anywhere else. My schedule for interviews and everything else has to fit around my gym. That's all I ever do. Is like, I went on one vacation once in my 20s. I went on a cruise with my wife. I lost so much weight because I didn't train for 2 weeks. I vowed never again. This is a guy who said he ate with he doesn't do it now, but he used to eat with wooden utensils because he would eat so much freshly warmed up food. With a metal spoon or a fork, he was burning his tongue. So it was just like, that's my life. People don't realize it. It was like, holy shit. I read that as like in my 20s thinking, when would that get too much? Obviously now he's retired, but it gets to a point where you go, fuck this.
Yeah. 100%.
Exactly. It's like, I can't go anywhere, do anything, or have a life. I can't socialize. I don't have late nights because I've got to be up after X amount of hours sleep to go back to the gym. I think, nah, not worth it. If only people knew it. You and I know the happiest people that look the best are the ones who don't make it their life. They are healthy in spite of all the demands on their time. Kids, partner, job, everything else. And they still find time to look after themselves. That should be the message, I think, that people do take into any kind of health and fitness journey, especially now because January's around the corner.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think it's something that's with regards, looking at other people and stuff. And I do think people are definitely changing on this front. I think it's definitely not as bad as probably like a few years ago. Mm-hmm. And I think the help of, giving it some praise of social media in that aspect has kind of made people realize. And I think there's a lot more people speaking about the negatives of this or thinking a certain way and actually helping people understand this. And even people who are in these physiques being a little bit more forthcoming in what they do
very much so.
To look a certain way. I think it's definitely I think it's definitely improved, and I think it's going in the right direction to make people realize, like, yeah, this is not the way you want to live. I know that it's not the way you want to live, and you can still really reap the rewards of health and fitness by doing kind of simple things that, like we said before, that are not overlooked, and really get some great benefits from them. Like, you don't need to live in the gym to build muscle. You don't need to do crazy training sessions to improve your cardiovascular fitness. You don't need to do all that.
Yeah. Especially
if you are someone that's not trained, or you're an untrained individual, especially, it's a lot less than even people think. So there's many good things coming out there now, which are hopefully nudging people in the right direction to just live a healthier lifestyle and get through life, just feeling good and not running into any problems as they start to age and things like that. So I think it's going in a better direction anyway.
Do you think this, like you said, this newer found side of the fitness industry where we're talking about things, I think a little bit of that is shadowed in sport now as well, because mental health is a topic that people know about and are prepared to acknowledge and talk about. I'm a big rugby fan, and I know that over the last year, there's a couple different, not charity so much, but like groups. Loose Heads is one of them. There's a few others around rugby specifically that are making a point of making mental health a very much aware thing. Do you think this attitude of honesty is going to continue in the fitness industry? People being a bit more upfront about going, here's what you do need to do. You can forget that. I might do this because I'm just trying to do whatever. But you think that's going to keep being pushed towards the forefront?
Yeah, I think so. I think, and again, it's not definitely not a bad thing. I think, more transparency is very good, and I don't think people can go wrong with that. And that's kind of with myself, the messaging that I try to put out there now is just kind of like, how can I try to help people overcome certain barriers to go in the direction they want to go in, or at least be better than where they currently are right now, and give them some kind of like applicable solutions that they can take going forward that's actually going to nudge them in the right direction and on a whole make the population a healthier nation, but within ways that are going to be, they don't feel like they need to do extreme stuff to actually get there and whatnot, and just taking a little bit more consideration, like you said, into people's mental well-being and how potentially some parts, if we're linking it back to fitness, like the diet culture and stuff like that, how that's affected a lot of people's mental health around food, especially, and around training and around the way they look. So it's got a lot to answer for, that side of things. But like I said, I do think people are becoming a little bit more aware now, and it seems to be becoming a lot better, and people are putting a lot more kind of like better content out there, and it's not always just about one thing. It's not just, monitoring scale weight and weight loss. It is important for some individuals to actually have that as a focus, and there's nothing wrong with someone wanting to lose weight. And I think obviously the industry can go one way or the other, and it certainly has done that in many cases. You've got people who are diet culture, and then you've got anti-diet culture, and in general they're both singing from the same hymn sheet deep down, because one's talking about like outcome driven, which is the diet culture, and the anti-diet culture are talking about process-driven goals. So kind of like engaging in healthy behaviors, but what that's going to lead to is an outcome anyway.
Sure.
So they're both saying the same thing. It's just how can we kind of like just meet in the middle somewhat and actually understand it from a big picture, as individuals are different to what they need and what they need to focus on.
Yeah.
I've got clients who I don't focus on the weight with them because they've had a past negative experience of doing so. And so we just focus on training performance, for example. And I know that then is going to actually help them keep driving forward rather than it just be about one thing. And I've got other clients who we are focusing on that because that is the goal. They do want to lose weight. They do want to look a certain way. So, and they don't have any issues that come along for the ride. And it's how people how people perceive things as well. So it can be so different for everybody. You know, you might have one group saying, don't track calories, you're going to get an eating disorder. And then you're going to get other people saying, track calories, you need to do it to lose weight and understand the calories in food. And it's kind of like, in many ways, like both of them are skewed messages.
Sure, yeah.
In some degree. So it's like saying you're going to get an eating disorder from tracking food is really, really like literally missing the forest for the trees, because it's all about who is the individual.
Yes.
Like if someone looks at tracking and you can have people who take a flexible approach but have a rigid mindset towards that. So you could have someone who tracks the food, but I wouldn't maybe track food with someone who's going to get really meticulous about it, where they go over by a gram of fat and lose the mind for the rest of the day.
Sure.
But you're going to have someone on the next breath who tracks who doesn't have any emotional attachment to that method at all. So it's good that the industry is kind of understanding both things, whether it's the mental side, like we spoke about, the physical side. But now can we merge together to understand both sides? Because there's research out of both areas there that are quite strong, and we need to stop like maybe cherry picking stuff and actually understand, yes, the science is important, but so is the individual that's right in front of us as well.
Yeah, most definitely. I mean, the application of that personal awareness, like you said, the individual's personality is very much key to their approaches and their success. The ability for some people to fixate on the smaller details that end up becoming a bigger problem sometimes can really be key. I mean, I know, and I'm not going to drop her in it, but I know of someone not so long ago, I mean, we're talking a couple of years back now for obvious reasons, who was going on a vacation, and she had become so fixated on her eating, but not in a way that was remotely positive, that her fella told me that when you're on the plane on the way back to Europe, she asked the flight attendant how much her food weighed. Now, as if the staff of the airline had any concept of what the food would weigh, because why would they? But she was like, "Could you tell me how much the food weighed, please?" And apparently the woman looked at her first, thinking, "What's the joke?" But then she was like, "I can't possibly tell you that because I have no idea. You know, we get it, we heat it up, we give it to you. That's it."
Yeah, exactly. That's definitely a part of diet culture that I've got a lot to answer for if it's made people like that at the same time. So I definitely agree with some of the messaging from, say, the other camp on that front. But I also disagree with what a lot of the other camps say when it comes down to kind of blanket statements that nobody should focus on weight loss, nobody should do this, nobody should do that, putting rules in place. It's kind of like we need to just take the good from each thing, just like we should do with everything in life, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's a prime example what you mentioned there as somebody who's not possibly in the best mental position when it comes down to food.
Oh yeah, I mean it's sometimes alarming where people's mindset goes. Are you looking to make some changes to your quality of life? Perhaps you're looking to embrace a whole new approach to exercise, nutrition, and a healthier lifestyle, but you're just not sure how to even get started. Without a basic framework in place and some goals set, you're going to struggle, and that is the most common reason why a lot of people experience a load of stress and ultimately don't succeed in their endeavours. They just don't have a clear path to get them started and follow on with. That's why I wrote Pathway to Health, Be Your Own Life Coach. This is a program that takes you through your lifestyle approaches to nutrition, exercise and activities, shows you how to take stock of your life as it is right now, plan things out and get started on your unique personal pathway to health. You can find this course on my website, www.thebodyengineer.training, in the online store. The program comes with video guides throughout and all the downloadable planners you need to become your own life coach. Listeners to this podcast can get a 20% discount with the discount code POD20. But with that then, you see a bit more of it than I do because you are in a bit more of an urban environment in the middle of Manchester. What's the current sort of mindset for youth awareness for eating and exercise? Because I only get snippets of like the UK when I look online or I listen to the news.
I think in anything with this fitness side of things, I feel like in general there's a lot of like whether it's whether it's nutrition or training, in general, I feel that there's a lot of fear mongering around it in general, especially towards kids. And there was something that I seen the other day actually on Instagram. There was this girl she was only about 6 or 7 who was participating in weight training.
Right.
And she was doing like a snatch. And some of the comments that people had written on this girl's video
saying about how she's going to kill herself and it was too young, blah, blah.
Extremely flawed information.
Sure, yeah.
This girl's going to be 3 foot when she's older. It's going to stunt her growth, etc., etc. Like crazy stuff. Like this kid's going to break her back. Loads of stuff where you're thinking, wow, like this stuff is still really present out there. Like there's still a lot of people that are not educated in this area to understand that it can actually have quite a opposite effect to that, if anything, and it's really good for bone density for young kids to participate in resistance training. So I think in general, I feel as a whole it's really bad, and that comes down to the same with food as well, with people being scared about having certain foods in the diet, whether it's sugar, whether it's having like a high fat in the diet. Like there's always extremes that people are looking at these things as if they're kind of like the main problem when they're just really a small part of the problem, really. And people need to look at the bigger picture. Like you'll get people who say, I don't eat sugar because of this, but they don't move in general. They don't participate in, say, taking the steps from 2,000 steps to 10,000 steps a day, which is going to have such more of a decrease in chances of mortality. Yeah. Like a massive on the scale. But they're worried about this 10% thing that may happen by consuming this food. Sure. So I think in general, in youth and as a whole, there's still a lot of fear mongering. There's a lot of like people who have this anecdotal advice. They have all these kind of narratives that they've come up with. I think that's something that happens across the board. And I do think that's something that massively needs to change, because you're seeing that a lot on Instagram as well, is people who are actually creating more barriers to participation than anything else. Yeah. Like, don't do this, avoid this, do these exercises to bulletproof this. Like, the human beings are so fragile. Sure. when that's certainly not the case. So
no, not at all.
I think there's definitely room to improve that across the whole, especially as well on the youth level. I don't know too much about what's being done about that in the UK. From that, but it is nice to see, like, I've seen videos recently of people in like physical education in America doing weights with the kids are doing resistance training, which was really good to see, as opposed to kind of like probably what they'll do here, where they might be very old school in their approach, like just cross country running. So again, just biasing aerobic fitness as opposed to biasing strength. And it's something I look back on as a kid, and I wish that I'd done that. I wish that I'd lifted weights from a much younger age than when I started, for sure. And I think that I'd like to see in the next few years that's something that gets brought into physical education for kids, and it's not just sport, but at the same time, I'm very big on kids not being specific at the same time. I think kids should be able to do everything and be good at everything, like play basketball, play football, play rugby, do athletics, but let's lift some weights as well. Sure. And I think kids need to not be overly specific in one thing. And I'd like to see that change. I don't know how they are going about doing that, but hopefully maybe it does down the line. And same with the nutrition front. Like, kids shouldn't be on MyFitnessPal tracking shit and tracking calories and stuff like that. You know what I mean? So that's another can of worms in itself. So I like to think the whole fear mongering with everything does start to diminish as people get a little bit more clued up with the research, and it gets out there a little bit more. Yeah, no, I'm exactly the same with you on that one. I don't yet have kids, and I find it. I was talking to actually doing a podcast a couple of weeks back with a guy who lives in London. Him and his wife have their own fitness business, and they're trying to get involved with some schools in their region for much the same reason as you just said. And Chris was telling me that the hurdles that they meet
both in terms of the effort the school are prepared to employ to meet them, are not even close to halfway. Like the commitment for time and never mind financing, that's a farce. But this is a case of physical education no longer is considered important. It's a token effort at best, and like you said, the idea of including a sense of nutrition, forget that as well. But one thing that we both said when we were recording that podcast that I've got to put up soon is there's little scope in an educational environment for kids to play now. You bear in mind, a lot of children nowadays, not everybody, because you and I never sat on our arse our entire childhood, but a lot of the time now, children's entertainment is all stationary. It's phone, console, laptop, television, with either themselves or by their friends. So if they're not doing it at school, they're not doing it at home, that all of a sudden that physicality, like you said, it's not just one genre of a sport, but it's been taken away, which has got to be a massive, massive factor for youth obesity. You think about the running around, like, because you and I are similar ages. You think about the running around we did as kids.
Yeah, exactly.
You would never still.
No, 100%. I think that's definitely something that definitely needs to change. And I think this, when we mentioned about starting in schools, is a good place, because what that can do is hopefully give the kids in school some idea of, oh, this is actually enjoyable. I want to take this up. So instead of going home and jumping on their Xbox, they can go to the gym with their friends. They can go to a class or whatever. But it starts, if we start to ingrain it in schools, it might be a bit more helpful for that. Do we ingrain a little bit more education as a whole about this stuff, and how, when the kids are doing the science and we're talking about these things, would it be worth going into like health benefits from training and what that brings and how that can decrease, like I said before, mortality. And then when we talk about the importance of having more muscle mass, the importance of having the ability to have an improved cardiorespiratory fitness, what impact that can have, like, would that be worth kind of touching upon a little bit more with the children? But it all stems from, I think, from like even medical professionals now, especially some doctors. Even those guys don't know the importance of this stuff, or at least don't promote it themselves. Where you mentioned before about someone else who was on the podcast who ran into some resistance for this stuff. Like, I have it with clients who they might go and see a doctor, and the first thing doctors will say to them is, you need to rest.
Yeah.
You need to not do this. You need to not do that. And
put your feet up.
They have no idea of the benefits that this is bringing to the person. They're looking at it from especially resistance training. They're looking at it in a very, very negative way. And they always look at the extreme. So it's funny when a client goes to see a GP for whatever reason, and they'll maybe ask you active, what do you do? Oh yeah, I lift weights, I go and see a trainer. The first thing they say is, oh, you need to be careful. and it's like, what do you mean by that? That's just stopping somebody.
Yeah, like you said, it's just putting a hurdle there straight away
in resistance training. And like, I feel it needs to come from there to translate down, because again, these people who are in charge of what goes on in schools, it needs to come from a position of authority. And unfortunately, us personal trainers are not a position of authority. No one really believes us. Unless our clients obviously know us and things like that, and know we come from a good place with all round health and that. So yeah, I think that comes from a much deeper place to get that ingrained. But I think it'd be fantastic for kids to start participating in this, and hopefully it has a lead on to their outside of school life as well, and we can get kids more physically active, like say when we was younger and stuff like that. But again, it's so tricky, isn't it? It's so tricky where it all comes down to them where people live as well. Like, you know, people don't want, if people living in Manchester now, or especially where I'm living at the minute, like people who live around there with kids, it's dark, it's cold,
wet.
People don't want the kids outside.
No, yeah, absolutely.
Like, it's dodgy what's going on around these areas and things like that. So there's such a big thing to look at. So, but it's like, how can we include something that gets gets the kind of like juices flowing for people to make this a way of life going into, adolescence.
I mean, I've said it on podcasts that I've recorded, and some that are out and some that aren't yet. But I don't believe physical education should be a topic you can't fail at school. You can fail at school. You should have to sit, to my mind, you should have to sit exams in physical education. There should be a topic that, spreading across nutrition, lifestyle awareness, exercise, activity, practical, theory, all of it, even if it's only 1 year of a 2-year GCSE sort of program for schools, that all kids need to be educated in how to look after themselves. In much the same way that Kevin Hart's got a program that he runs in certain parts of inner city America to help lower socioeconomic kids understand finance. Because as he said, I got a load of money when I got famous, and I lost a load of money spending it on shit I didn't need because I was never told, here's a good way to manage your finances. You've got your bills, you've got your income, you've got the leftover, you've got the things you buy that are just whatever, and the things that are important. He's like, I never got any of that shit. So he now works with I forget the name of the bank, it's one of the biggest in America. He actually runs a program to teach kids as teenagers, here's how to manage your finances, so you don't end up with a huge amount of debt or in problems with the bank or whatever else. And I think that should be an approach that goes into, and I say British education, not to slam anybody else, but purely because I'm from the UK. I don't see how it couldn't be a topic.
No, I agree. And I think it's real life problems that people run into. Like you said, with the finances that Kevin Hart's doing, it's something that kids are going to need to, as they grow up, know more about. And I think with with the training side of things and physical education, I always say this, and to be honest, I when I was in school, I was quite sporty. Obviously, it kind of drip feeds into what I do now. And I was always quite good at PE, and I excelled in PE massively. And that was through an array of different sports, especially football. But I never really got kind of praised for that. I never really got, recognized for being good at something, because again, like I say, it was just kind of, he's good at PE, but I wasn't very good at maths. But that was the thing. Even though I was never going to work in that area, that was the thing that was highlighted as a real negative. And it wasn't kind of the thing that I was good at wasn't really utilized to make me a better student, because I didn't enjoy maths. I wasn't very good at maths. And that's something that teachers, especially when, and don't get me wrong, I wasn't the best behaved kid in the world neither. But at the same time, when my mum went to parents' evening, it was always the negative stuff like this, and they put such an emphasis in maths, English, science. Where's the emphasis on the PE side? Where's the physical education? Because I did really well in sports studies, and obviously went on to study sports science at university. So that was my field, and I wasn't really good at anything else.
Right.
But why was that not celebrated? Like you said, why was that not something that was recognized? And let's face it, that is something that is extremely important. So if someone's talking about being good at maths, being good at this, that, being good at your job, having productivity, what comes in line with having good productivity? Being fit and healthy. That's what comes with it. And if without that, nobody's going to do that. And that's why a lot of businesses now are going, obviously with the corporate well-being, people are starting to recognize that and getting people in to help them be more productive within the workspace, have less sick days. It all speaks for itself, and it should be more important. I definitely agree with that.
Yeah, I mean, I remember when I started my military career, and you start doing that really early, sort of like first few days. And one of the sort of like the part of the intro package was like, here's what we're going to do at this stage. You train, blah, blah, blah. And one of the questions was, why do you think we put such an emphasis on fitness, even for the less physical trades? And people like put their hands up and say X, Y, and Z. And the overall sort of like summary of everything was, the fitter you are, the healthier you are. But the sharper your mind is, the better your concentration and your focus and your drive. You don't end up slumping into a mental fog by 2 p.m. But you're also, like you said, the bone density, muscle strength. You've got good digestion. You've got good emotional control, probably because your mind's in a healthy place. It's a benefit to you to be physically robust. It translates into all aspects of your life. And like I said, there's now such a departure when it comes from, so again, Chris was explaining this to me, and I've got no clue because I don't work with the school program, but the notion that all children need to be just slammed into academia at the earliest opportunity. It's just got more and more prevalent in the education system in the UK, and physicality has just been pushed off to one side. I think he was saying now that you're lucky if not schools have 2 hours of exercise a week at most. And I was staggered. And he was saying that the school that his kids go to, they adopted a program that was pioneered, I think it was Edinburgh, which was a mile a day for one school. They tried out this this whole initiative, which was to promote physicality for the kids. It was every student had to do a mile a day on the school site. Now you could run it in a period of time, you could just walk it, but you had to do a mile a day 5 days a week to promote just that increased activity. And he was like, the school that his kids go to, they're both quite young, adopted the same program. But of course, there's no impetus there to maintain it. So what was, when it started 5 days a week, walk cover a mile in a day, is now 2 non-compulsory walks or miles, but I think it's become a half mile now. So you try telling a bunch of kids, go outside and do this activity, but if you don't want to, as opposed to the school in Edinburgh who said, no, everyone's doing it 5 days a week. It's like the adherence, of course, is not there. The staff don't reinforce it. So it's, as an initiative, it's been lost. So,
and you see that from even when I was in school, which was obviously quite a bit ago anyway. Now it was always people could get away with not doing PE.
Sure.
It was like you know, and I think it's even worse now. People can go in and be like, yeah, I don't want to do it, and the teachers ain't got a leg to stand on, because kids could be like, yeah, I don't want to do that today. It's going to affect me mental health. I'm not doing it. and unfortunately, that will be. I don't know any PE teachers, but I reckon that's probably something they run into quite a lot, where people will say, well, I don't have to do it. I'm not doing it. I haven't brought my kit. I'm not doing it. I'm not comfortable in my kit, blah, blah, blah. Like there's a lot of that. But if you took that into any other thing like maths, English, science, you won't have a leg to stand on.
No,
so
I don't want to do English today.
Exactly. And don't get me wrong, there's obviously kids that don't want to do anything. But I think it should be more of a taken a little bit more seriously for sure. And I think that then, and again, we're not saying this to just be arseholes. This is going to something that's going to benefit children going into adolescence.
Well, yeah, absolutely.
Going into adults for the rest of their life, hopefully.
Sure, because it's all the generations that now will be in a few years, that the next round of young adults, which will go into everything else, but it's an economic burden, or an issue, I should say, because all of those generations of less than healthy children will become less than healthy adults, which means the NHS gets a battering from another wave of human beings, and it's so on and so on and so on, because we've become very good now in the West about keeping sick people in the population for a very long time. You can't keep adding, if your people are generally unwell from the age of 30 because they're overweight and they've got type 2 diabetes and blah, 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 we can keep you going now till you're 80, Yeah,
exactly.
So it's like, that's going to be a huge socioeconomic drain. I want kids to be healthy for their own sake, not just for that reason. I mean, I said you and I don't have children yet, but it should be in the future, wherever mine might end up living in the world, whether it's back in the UK or here, or, I want to know that they're going to have an idea about that kind of thing from not just mum and dad, because as everyone knows, you don't necessarily take what your parents tell you with the kind of importance that you should. I'd like to hear it come from another source as well.
Definitely.
Yeah, especially, Dad, the fitness person. Of course, okay, Dad, thanks very much for that. It's like, no, this is important. But yes, it is something that I think should be addressed on a more serious level. Once other health issues in the world have like faded away to historical significance rather than current affairs, shall we say?
Oh yeah, that's it. Definitely, that's a good other excuse for people now, isn't it? Really, I guess.
Well,
they can avoid PE probably just by going, I've got a bit of a cough, I need to probably go home and isolate.
Yeah. Go and have this thing shoved in your nose, like I had a while back on my holiday. That was great fun. I'd gone literally the whole era of the current situation I'd survived without having to have any kind of. I wasn't traveling anywhere. I didn't have to go anywhere where I might be at risk, so I hadn't needed to have a test. Then when we went to Zanzibar for our vacation last month, I had to have 3 in 6 days. That was great. Like, come here and shove us up your nose. But That was an experience. And my wife was like, ha ha ha, I've been having it for literally ages. Okay, buddy. So I'm going to wrap us up now because you're pretty much an hour. But what I'm going to do is I've decided I'm going to start asking everybody this question. So you'll be the first. Right. Sticking with the whole the naming of the podcast, which is Fitness Without Filter. So completely uncensored then. What's something, whether it's a point of view or something to be addressed or something that gets on your nerves when it comes to awareness or actions, when it comes to health and exercise and fitness, what's something that you think you would want to get out there off your chest? What's a topic or a focus, something that gets on your nerves or something you want people to sort of like pay attention to? Go for it.
Wow.
Not in a completely negative sense, but just something that you can just speak your mind on.
There's a lot in the fitness that gets on my nerves, but I think I'll keep it in line with what we spoke about a lot today, and that would be kind of like people can achieve so much from very little. It's just getting started doing something. I think the message in the fitness industry has become a lot about minutia, about people's individual bias. Rather than it is about actually helping people. I feel like the industry, it adds a lot more barriers to people participating in whatever that may be, whether it's resistance training, whether it's doing some cardiovascular class, whatever it may be. There's a lot more barriers, and we've mentioned in the podcast, more hurdles being put up, people telling people they're fragile, they should avoid this, they shouldn't do this. I would say that annoys me more than anything because it's stopping people from doing something that's going to bring them a great deal of health, mentally and physically. And for me, then people shouldn't be in the fitness industry if they're doing that. We should all be in the fitness industry to encourage people to take up something that's going to bring so much to the table for them and live a quality of life. So I say my biggest pet peeve is those individuals that add more barriers rather than and create more problems rather than giving more solutions and less problems.
That's a fantastically good point. Thank you very much for that. Right then, so as we're going to wrap up now, been great talking to you, Dave. So social media, podcasts, email address, anything you want to plug, any points of contact, go for your life, mate. Do so now. So
I'm not very big on the whole marketing situation. I'm literally just, I work at a private personal training facility called FORM in Manchester. So I work with my clients there. I'm basically head of training there. So I'm basically constantly just trying to develop the team to provide a quality level of service. So that's kind of where most of my time goes, really, as opposed to kind of being on social media or whatnot. But if you do want to find me on social media, I do try and post as often as I can with this stuff that we kind of spoke about today. At Coach David Flowers is my Instagram handle. My email is info@coachdavidflowers.com. If anyone's got any questions relating to what we spoke about today, if they want to see any of the research in certain points that I've made, I'm more than happy to lead people to certain articles, podcasts, including the one that I've been on today and things like that, just to give people a good idea and educate them. But all in all, that's probably the most places where you can find me. And that's about it.
That's fantastic. All right, Dave, thank you very much, mate. It's been great to talk to you, and we'll probably do another of these in the future.
Thank you very much for having me on. Cheers.
Cheers, buddy.